Hey, this is A-Rod again with OGeconomics.com. Today's video is a follow-up to my previous video asking about how to know a country was collapsing. And I was specifically asking for 5 things that governments do when a collapse is occurring and they're trying to maintain control. Okay, so item number one of the activities that countries do when a country is in the process of collapsing is they try to use forceful control. As an example, we've seen some Antifa riots, we've seen some BLM riots over the last couple of years, and it was to achieve a certain agenda. So that would be under forceful control, where they're trying to use violence to get an agenda accomplished. Task number 2, misleading information. So if we take a look to see what's happened now over on Twitter, where we now know that censorship was occurring at the highest levels, it was a way of trying to mislead from the truth. We also had some fact checkers where anytime a news report came out or an article came out from someone who was credible, all of a sudden you heard about fact checkers trying to verify their facts. That's another form of misleading the public. And then, of course, we've got the media, and we know that they have not been giving us the true picture about what's really going on around the world. And that's really in regards to the economy, in regards to politics, in regards to health. Doesn't really matter what topic you're talking about. You're seeing it all over the place. The third task, or the third thing that governments do while collapsing, is that they punish dissent. So anytime you are going against the narrative that they want you to believe, you're a dissenter. So what they're doing is they've been shutting down dissenters for the last few years. Look at what's happened with Trump. He's been impeached twice, and then we had the Russia gate, turned out to be a hoax. So what they're doing is they're trying to punish Trump for dissenting from the group. And so again, it's just another sign that a country is collapsing. The fourth sign, or the fourth task, is they start manipulating the economy or controlling the economy. So last year, when GDP was going negative, we had 2 quarters of negative GDP. Now, it was always historically accepted that when you had negative GDP for 2 quarters, it was a recession. But the government came out and changed the way that they calculate a recession. And so the narrative was, we're not in a recession, even though negative GDP has occurred for 2 quarters in a row. The definition of it has changed, so therefore we're not in recession. One of the other examples that the government uses, or what they do in signs of countries collapsing economies, is they manipulate the numbers, as I mentioned, in regards to the definition of recession. So now what they're doing, I want to say it's effective this month, I'll have to double check, but they're going to change how they're calculating CPI. So obviously the government needs to show that inflation is better so they can keep borrowing. So they're going to change or manipulate the number to show that inflation is a lot lower. In fact, it really isn't, but don't let that stand in the way. Again, these are just typical signs when a country is collapsing. So those 5 tasks that they do, they're already occurred, or occurring, or have occurred. If you take a look at a lot of the other countries that are also in upheaval, see whether or not they're taking these 5 tasks as well. Chances are you'll see that they all have. And so the reason I wanted to bring up, steps that countries take when they're collapsing is so that you can recognize what's going on, because once you recognize what's going on, there's not a lot you can do to control it, which is something that you'll realize. So rather than trying to control it, you need to just start adapting to it, because there's going to be so many events that happen that if you're fixed or fixated on just one way, unfortunately, things aren't going to work out that one way under most situations. So I'm not saying you shouldn't plan on a scenario happening. What I'm saying is the plan should be adaptable and changed based on what's happening or how you're being affected by what's happening. That's really the most important point, is recognizing what's coming. I mean, we're in the collapse. So you recognize what's coming, and then now you've got to determine how you're going to be able to maneuver your way through all this, because this is not only going to affect us financially, it's affecting us politically, it's affecting us as a society, and we're going to get squeezed in all those different aspects, meaning that financially the system, they know, is collapsing. They're running on fumes. Everybody knows that. Now, can they keep it going? Yeah, they can print more money, although it looks like the way they want to solve it is they just want to burn down the whole system, come out with the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency that the Federal Reserve is going to basically have total control over, and they'll know everywhere you spend your money. And if you're spending too much in an area that they don't believe you should be spending in, they're just going to flip a button and you're not going to be able to buy that anymore. So, I mean, this is very, very simple explanation, I realize, in regards to the Fed and the CBDC. It's a whole other topic that we'll be talking about in more detail. But I'm just, again, trying to give you some different way of looking at things, because when you realize that your country's in collapse, you know, you kind of panic maybe. You start wondering, how is this going to affect you? How's it going to affect your family? And you can go down a very dark hole, dark rabbit hole, if you allow it to. So rather than going down the dark rabbit hole, you'd be much better off just realizing where we're at, what's happening, and like I said, adapting. If you adapt, and if you mentally can adapt, then you can move and do a lot of different things to try to keep your family in a good position to get through this. And that's really the most important point here. So hopefully you got a lot of value from this. These are always hard discussions to have, because you want to explain thorough enough for everyone to get the point, but then at the same time, you don't want to make this an hour long of just repeating everything I'm saying. So again, hopefully you got some value. If you did, hit the like button. If you're on Twitter, retweet it, share it with someone, and we'll see you again in a couple days. We'll upload another video. Again, a lot more content to come. We're just working on some back-end issues, and then we'll get into the heart of it. So appreciate your time. Have a great day.